Good morning, good afternoon, based on where you're at, everyone, and welcome. Today's session is called Awaken the Force, an introduction to Google Gemini for the workplace. And we have a fantastic host to lead us through it. I'm delighted to introduce Brian Sims. Brian is an educator and training leader who works right at the crossroads of project management and generative AI. He brings more than 15 years of experience in education, a decade of deep expertise in project management, and the past 5 years spent fully immersed in the rapidly evolving world of artificial intelligence. At graduate school, Brian leads curriculum development and training for professionals across both government and private sector. His programs help people sharpen their project management skills, make smarter data-driven decisions, and apply AI genuinely practical ways. In fact, if you've taken one of graduate school's newer AI courses, or if you had your eye on one, chances are Brian either designed the curriculum himself or is the instructor leading the room. What sets Brian apart from his hands-on, no-nonsense teaching style is an obvious passion for the subject. His sessions are continuously subjective, approachable, and easy to engage with. Today, Brian is here to tackle one of the most valuable skills professionals can develop right now, prompting generative AI for government work. We'll look through how to write prompts that deliver real results, where tools like Gemini truly shine in the government setting, and just as importantly, where caution and sound judgment need to take the lead. Brian, thank you so much for being with us, and the floor is yours, my friend.
Oh, great. Thank you so much, Amanda. Hi, everyone, and welcome. Probably doesn't need to be said, but today is May the 4th. So Awaken the Force, if you're not familiar. Star Wars was a trilogy, came out in the late 70s. Yeah, okay, good. Some claps. All right, so you guys are aware. Light, no copyright infringement intended or happening within this presentation, but kind of leaned in to the Star Wars theme with our presentation today. Really happy to have you all with us. So we're going to awaken the force. I love that too, unintentionally, and I didn't even notice this till this morning. Gemini kind of sounds like Jedi, so that complete happy accident, which maybe I shouldn't admit. But yeah, really glad to have you here. Um, yeah, yeah. As Amanda mentioned, excuse me, we do have the Q&A area at the bottom. I am. May the fourth be with you as well, Marie. We do have the Q&A area at the bottom of your screen, right next to maybe not so conveniently located by the leave button. It's sort of on the bottom right hand side. So if you have any questions, I'm kind of immersed. I've got like screens literally all around me. So where I'm sharing screens, I'll try to keep out of the corner of my eye an eye on the questions. So if I see them and can get to them, and if it's kind of in the flow, I'll try to address it. Or if I know it's coming up, I might just skip past it, and because I know we'll get to something like your question a little bit later. But I'll try my best. I know we've got hundreds of people signed up, so I'll do my very best. But very glad to have you all with us today. Thanks for spending your lunch hour with me. Google has been building this tool. For quite a while. It was originally came out as something different, was intelligently rebranded as Google Gemini. So we're going to get a great introduction to that today. And even if you don't maybe have access to Gemini or haven't used it yet, that's totally fine. This is intended to be an introduction to. We have a class that fully immerses you in the Gemini experience, which I'll talk about a little bit more later, very, very little bit. So if you see enough here and you're interested in learning more, we've got some avenues to get you there. But this is also hopefully very useful for anybody too with a military background and maybe has access to genai.mil because as at least as I understand it, Gen AI that tool is based on Google Gemini. So a lot of the services and tools will look and function very similarly. So a lot of this may look very familiar. So as we get into this, I am actually really glad we're recording this too, because the coolest thing I have ever done in PowerPoint, you're about to witness. So I don't know if you're a big PowerPoint user. I felt like I was until I tried to do this. And I wish I had music. I don't. But anyway, here goes. Coolest thing I've ever done in PowerPoint. No music, but and it even fades. I got the little fade to work too. They've been training for all along with the little ellipses at the end too, just like an intro to the movies. Yeah. Awesome. There are tutorials on how to do this. I don't want to publicly admit how long I took this weekend to play with this. It became more of a play than work, but that was really cool. Um, but yeah, so anyway, as you could see in the scroll, right, lots of reasons to come to Gemini. I had a little bit of fun, or a lot of bit of fun with that over the weekend here. But yeah, happy Fourth, everybody. Really glad to have you with us today. We'll cover some things, as Amanda mentioned. First, we'll tackle meeting Gemini. I'll do a lot of demos, as I usually like to do in these webinars. I'll go out to a demo screen, show you around the interface, and talk about, just we'll give you a tour of the area. Um, We'll also look at a galaxy of AI tools and kind of put Gemini up against some of the other tools that are out there. So hopefully you'll have a better mental model of when to maybe choose Gemini versus some others. We'll talk a little bit also, as Amanda mentioned, about prompting. If you attended our webinar last week that was specific on prompting, that talked about kind of one suite of techniques. I'm taking a bit of a different approach this week. So even if you were with me last week when we were talking very foundational prompt stuff, we've got some new prompt information in this one. So you'll still get some great information from this one that isn't necessarily even Gemini specific. So we'll talk some prompt. There's some great prompt nuggets in here, and I'll leave you with some glimpses into some things that are very Gemini specific, a little more on the advanced side. And again, it's a good segue into, additional, uh, dare I say, Jedi-like training in the Gemini space. So lots of great stuff to cover here in our hour together. And again, you don't need to install anything. If you have access to Gemini and want to follow along, either on the app on your phone or in the browser, of course you're welcome to do that. But I'll do lots of different demonstrations here. So let's get on to our first mission, just meeting interface. So if you're not familiar, Gemini, excuse me, is Google's kind of flagship assistant. If the good news too, like if you know one of these tools, you can probably find your way around all of them, right? It is kind of a good news, bad news story, I think, that they all look the same, they all function largely the same. I have a rant I kind of get into in class that I'll spare you in this webinar that kind of helps people distinguish when to a deeper dive in distinguishing when to use what. The Cliff's Notes version is a kind of, I think, for me, goes back to where each of these tools were born, because that is kind of still in their DNA, and I think they all kind of continue to shine based on where they came from. Um, but Google is kind of like, ChatGPT, which you're maybe more familiar with, or Claude, or Grok, or it's Google's answer to an LLM, one of those AI assistants that maybe already are using for writing, analysis, research, those types of things. Of course, you can put in prompts that are text-based. You can upload images. Where it's really good, though some others are really catching up and doing a great job. Uploading video, synthesizing audio, those types of things are, I think, Gemini particularly excels at. You can also upload files directly, just like you can do with Gemini and some other tools. It's very good too. A lot of the tools have, in even the past couple of weeks, made big strides in extending what they call a context window. And Gemini is one of the big players there too, where now it can hold like millions of what they call tokens, which all that means is it can now, it's like its short-term memory has gotten way better, right? Where it used to only be able to remember, maybe a couple chapters of a book, let's say. Now it could remember the entire novel type of thing. So it's really good at remembering large conversations, which is very helpful for very complex tasks or if you want to return to conversations. So Gemini has that now too, as do a lot of others. Um, Little glimmer of what we'll see ahead. It's particularly nice because you can, especially if you're maybe for your personal life or if you're working for an organization that is ingrained kind of in the Google workspace, or maybe you use Chrome again for personal or professional work, or maybe your apps, maybe you have a Google-based OS on your phone. Gemini is beginning to, be ingrained or is ingrained already into all of those things, as we'll see when we go out to demo environments. Um, and because it's in those places like the Google Workspace, like in your Chrome browser, if that's the one that you use a lot, and it's on your phone, um, by default anyway, it has a lot of that memory. It shares that memory across your workspace and across your browser and across your phone. So very good at personalizing the experience to you, if you're open to, you haven't changed those defaults and you're allowing it to share that information across platforms. So very cool, if you will, if you're in a position to allow Google to share that type of information. Let's see, got a couple questions. Just people wishing a good fourth. That's great. Um, uh, Excel spreadsheet. Somebody asked about that specifically. Experience difficulty with this. Yeah, I think that's a great point. Somebody asked. You could probably copy and paste information from a table that had been in Excel into Gemini, and it would do some basic work with it. I would imagine, and we'll talk about this, and we'll see this a little bit. I won't, though I won't demo this specifically, but it's built to work better with Google Docs. So a solution to that particular conundrum might make more sense to say put some data in Google Docs and then say use the sidebar, because again that's going to be Google app talking to Google app. So there's probably going to be less friction there to that question that showed up in the Q&A. But yeah, so that's a little bit about Gemini, just who it is. We'll go out to a demo and I'll show you a little bit of this here in a second. But when we look at the prompt bar, you'll notice there are some options. Flash. In fact, let me just get to the demo now, and I'll better than talk through it. Let me just show you. I'm going to go here to a browser, and I'm going to go to Google Gemini. Mhm. Good job, guys. I search Google Gemini and a ChatGPT ad comes up. They know what they're doing. Look at that. So here I'm in a Gemini environment. I'm already logged in. We have a work account. And it kind of looks, as you may notice right off the bat, looks very similar to, ChatGPT or something. And it kind of defaults to dark mode. Maybe that's what I have for my work account. Might be a little easier to see. Sometimes I get this. Let me go to light mode to make it a little easier to view there. But what I was starting to show on that slide is here's our little prompt bar right here, right? And there are some modes in here. When I click this, with some other interfaces, you can switch between models, and these aren't really their models per se. They kind of are and kind of aren't. It's a little confusing with Gemini. I'm not entirely sure why they do it this way. But when you're about to put a prompt in here, you can choose. Do you want it to go fast and just give me an answer quick? This is not a very complex task, and it's nice because it gives you the little tooltip kind of right there on what each of them means. Do you want it to think little longer, a little harder, maybe, a more complex question? Or do you want it to use Pro? And this is only available with certain plans. I have the Ultra, so it's open to me, but this is something, as it says, you would use with like advanced math and code. There are a couple of plans. And I did want to showcase, let me go back here to the slide. This is what I wanted to showcase. Yeah, so I have it here. This is just like what we were just looking at, the fast thinking in Pro. on the sidebar app, which we'll see in a little bit later demo. Again, it's kind of funny. They're always tweaking these systems and things, so it looks a little different. It's as like I say in a lot of classes, by the way, it's not you, right? You're probably not crazy if you're like, I felt like I looked at this and it was different. It probably was. They're updating these interfaces all the time. But for example, like I looked at this, what was this, last Friday or something, and this was the web interface where it had fast thinking in Pro, and the sidebar had fast thinking in Pro, but it also had an auto option, which was, hey, just it adapts to my needs. So that's really cool. And the web interface didn't have that, for example. So they're switching things up all the time, probably A/B testing. I'm even in the same account, right? And it's showing up a little bit different for me, given the experience. There are a couple of plans here. I'll click these links so I can show you. I might try to, I'll do that. I'll go ahead and drop these in the chat as well. Let me open up both of these guys. But for individuals, there's a free account. If you have a Google account, here's what you can get: access to 3 Pro, 3.1 Pro. It has deep research and live and Canvas and Gems. I'll talk about those things a little bit later. And you can upgrade to Plus or AI Pro or Ultra, which is the one that I have, or I have the ultra version, but for business. And there's also business plans. So, know that this is an option. There's a couple of plans to choose from. And again, like a lot of the other providers, you get, with a free plan, it's gonna limit the amount of images and things you can do, and probably let you play around a little bit with audio and voice, but you might hit limits and things like that. You hit those, you hit fewer walls or won't hit them as fast, with the more you pay each month and that type of thing. So while I'm still in a demo environment here, so anybody can get to this, probably the most accessible way for most of us who, maybe if you're like me, right, live in front of a laptop screen, or work work primarily, which kind of feels like living in front of a laptop screen. You can go to gemini.google.com. This is again the interface that looks very similar to others. We've got our prompt window right here. You can choose between how you want it to answer fast thinking in Pro, like we talked about before. Just like many of the other tools, you have a panel here where you can go back and you can open this and close this, see your past chats as long as you're logged in. It's keeping a record of that. And just like others, right, we could throw a little prompt in here. I've got a pre-typed one. Oop, let me do this instead. I'll go plain text. And I don't think we need Pro for this. I'm going to ask it explain what Gemini is in one short paragraph for a non-technical coworker. And this says, think of Gemini as a highly advanced personal assistant that doesn't just read text, but also sees and hears information much like we do. It's a tool from Google that can help you draft emails, summarize long documents, create slide decks, and analyze photos or videos and answer complex questions. Because it's built directly into the apps we already use, like Gmail, Docs, and Drive, it can act as a bridge between your files, helping you organize your schedule and find specific details buried in old threads, without you having to do manual digging. How could this tool? Oh, look at that. It's having a little conversation with me. Isn't that nice? Oh, and I see we have a couple questions in chat. Um, yeah, one of the questions is whether attaching or copying and paste works better. Honestly, Marie, who asked that question, I've not noticed a difference between one or the other. I would think with the one being better, attaching or copying and pasting. What I think Gemini specific would be better is if you say had something in Docs. Um, uh, you could open, say, the sidebar, and we'll get to a demo of this a little bit later. And there, you could cut both of those things out of the equation by with Gemini, just using the sidebar interface. You wouldn't have to say select anything or copy and paste anything. You could just go in and say, how does this model work? Or can you summarize these columns? Go ahead and add whatever to my spreadsheet. You can just talk to Gemini and have it interact directly with your spreadsheet, which is awesome. And how long will it keep track of chats? I see another, let me ask it. That's a great question. I don't know that I have ever noticed a limit, but let me ask it. How long will you keep track of my chats? 18 months, says Google or Gemini here. It's a fair amount. Default time, 18 months. Auto delete options, and you can delete, right? Um, you can turn off activity. Interesting. Yeah, interesting. So yeah, lots of things you can do here in settings. I'm not going to take a deep dive. In the longer course, we do a deeper dive into settings. See, I'm starting to get some questions about privacy and things, which is great questions. And we do a deeper dive into that in the longer 2 day course that we have. The short answer to it is, if you're on one of those personal plans, like I was talking about, well, it's personal, right? So it's whatever you set. You can set its retention policy, how you want a microphone, say, to behave. Do you want it to have access to certain things or not, right? It's completely in your control and with these personal plans. In a business plan, it's a little bit, some things are in your control, but the short answer is, again, most things are up to your IT department. So they may have, a different rule. I want you to keep track, a different data retention policy or different privacy policy, those types of things. Pardon me. Okay, cool. So great question so far. This is awesome. Let me turn off transcription here. So, and by the way, this is cool. I used Gemini to generate this image. It did a pretty good job too. At first, it had kind of like if you've watched any of the Star Wars shows recently, I don't remember if the original trilogy did this, but since this did it, I started to notice it because of course I had to watch like an old Star Wars movie or two, or a newer Star Wars movie or two, over the weekend or whatever, and like they kind of have this kind of alien text or whatever, and I was like, oh, it did the same thing in my image. The only reprompting I had to do is it gave these doors like some titles, which I didn't want to do, but it was really easy to do. I went into the interface and said, hey, can you make 4 doors in a Star Wars like, don't infringe on copyright, but in kind of a 4 doors, kind of I show 4 doors in kind of a Star Wars style. And it thought for a little bit and then gave me this, and I cropped it down. Again, it gave me some words initially that I took out, but yeah, really good with images. So here's a sample of one of those. But yeah, point of the slide here is you can get to Gemini multiple ways. You can do like I did in that last demo, and go to gemini.google.com, and that's a standalone app where that functions just like going to ChatGPT, those types of things. We'll see in a later demo when I use some of these other ones. It also operates as a side panel when you're in Docs or Google Sheets or Google Slides or your Gmail or your Drive. Pardon me. So that's actually a really great function because again, you can, just if you're at all like me, I use like Google more for like home and personal things. But with, Gemini as an assistant now, and we have like a family account, I got my personal account, I've got a work account, I've got so many different Gmail I got, for my personal company too and consulting business. I've got Gemini, just Google everywhere, right? So having the ability for Gemini to, access what I've given it access to, and can you comb through all of these things would take me hours maybe, right? Certainly minutes, half hours, if not hours, to comb through all this stuff. And where did I leave this conversation with Amanda? No, not that Amanda, that Amanda, those types of things. Having it being able to operate in a side panel is really fantastic. Um, Operates within the Chrome browser. That's another way you might see this. Pardon me. And as a mobile app. Actually, this is really cool. I didn't even think of this till just this second. But I'm living in Northern Virginia, sort of the DC area. And this weekend it was a very pleasant weekend here weather-wise. And we were outside doing some yard work, laying some mulch and planting some flowers and things. And I used the Google app for this that we came across it was a bulb. My wife dug up a bulb and she was hoping to get, I don't remember what the name of the plant was, but was hoping it was a particular type of bulb. And she's like, did I get it or is this something else? And anyway, we took with the app and, put it in the camera and asked, is this the type of whatever the heck plant it was? Is this that type? And anyway, if it can be trusted, which we'll talk about later, it said, yeah, it's this type of bulb, which is exactly the one that she was looking for. So that was really cool. Yeah. Um, Oh, I see some questions for a 101 level of AI. We have some AI fundamentals courses that is totally where I would start, and I'll link to those a little bit later on in the presentation. Um, Yeah, and share a screen while using Gemini. Yeah, I will totally. Yeah, I've started to do that. Share a screen, and I'll do that a few more times throughout our presentation to that other question. Yep. So anyway, lots of ways just through your web browser, through side panels, in your web browsing if you're using Chrome and on your phone. If you will allow it, if you'll open your figurative and actual doors to Gemini, it can be all over, which can be really transformative. So why would we use it? um, we'll get into our second mission here of our May the 4th briefing. Well, ChatGPT, right? That's fantastic generalist. We have entire classes on that. I won't talk a lot about that, but that has fantastic strengths and weaknesses. If your allegiances are to that, totally and completely understood. Claude is also really great. It's again kind of born in code, so it's particularly good at that. Great with really complex topics and things. Copilot is also great if you're more of a Microsoft shop, right? It's kind of very, very similar to how Gemini is ingrained into the Google workspace. Well, that's Copilot for all things Microsoft. So that's, again, in the same ways that Gemini is really handy if you're so Google native, same for Copilot to Microsoft. So Gemini, right, which is the subject of this webinar, is native to that Google workspace, very strong on images, video, and audio. You may have seen or heard of Nano Banana. That's the image generator that for a long time was the front runner of all of the AI assistants. Now ChatGPT is making massive strides. Copilot is actually doing a really good job. Copilot can do some things that I know ChatGPT can't do anymore. So it's crazy out there, right? Really exciting. These tools are evolving all the time. But Gemini, again, I was mentioning that I have a longer diatribe about where all these were born and to its they each are kind of back to their basics and their strengths. And Gemini's was kind of, for me, I think is fair to say, like the creative-y stuff, right? Audio, video, things that are more creative in nature. Gemini seems to really shine. Um, and this too, with because we all, when you think even Google, right, that kind of that as a word has become synonymous with search, right? So source grounded research. Source grounding means, like web, like what are we looking at for search? And as we'll see in a demo here in a little bit, Gemini being ingrained right within Chrome is awesome, right? It was already kind of the preeminent search engine for in the space, but now that it's got AI and it's so good at search, like, put those things together, really, really powerful tool. So Gemini has some great strengths, right? And my answer to the inevitable question that I get in basically every class is, okay, Brian, well, awesome. You seem to know it. Which one's the best? The answer is, well, where are you, right? And so certainly for Google or for Gemini, it's if you're in Google, Gemini is the short answer to that. Lives right inside these places, like we mentioned. It also has something called deep research, which is really cool. I'll talk about it a little bit more. I'll show you where it lives. We're not going to do a demo of it. We do this in the larger class. Same with Notebook LM. If that's not something that you're familiar with, it's worth your time. I'll expose you to it in this demo in this webinar. Again, this is just an introduction to all these things, but Notebook LM integrates within Gemini. Again, I'll show you that. It's really great. It can read images, video, and audio again in ways that for a long time the other AI tools couldn't even touch. And again, like we were just talking about, where when you think Google, all the things that Google is so strong with, that plus now the power of AI is so transformative. Google owns YouTube as well, right? So it's good at scanning the whole web for all those types of things. Share. Yep. So, yep, already got that. Answered live. And just came to the webinar. How secure is this? I heard you say that you use it for business. Yeah. Yeah. So security wise, the short answer to that is, for your personal, you would set those security type settings. So it says it has as much access as you grant it. And for the business, same. The short answer is the same, right? Your IT team would decide, are we going to give Gemini access to the whole data graph or just specific parts? Do we want users of Gemini to just be relegated to the enterprise graph of information, or is it okay to access the web? So it's up to the IT team or whoever is sitting in that role, be it a personal or business plan to answer that question. Yeah. Oh yeah, and we will talk factual accuracy. Yeah, we'll talk a little bit about that here today too. So yeah, great questions coming in there. And I'm getting to most of them too. This is great. Let's see. What did we miss? Yes, we did distinct strengths. Um, so right, yeah, started to touch on this. When would you choose Gemini? Again, if it's where you are, so you're already in a doc, you're already in a sheet, you're already in a slide or Gmail or something. That is. Oh darn! You know what? I may have missed something here. Sorry, I did. Apologies. I think I just blew past something I wanted to show you. Can't blow past that. I wanted to show you those things I was just chatting about. So let me get back here. Let me start a new chat here. Again, I wanted to at least expose you to this. I'll hide my little prompt menu here because some of the things that make this distinctly cool are Notebook LM and deep research that I mentioned. So, like some tools, not all tools will have something like this. I already pointed out this kind of selector over here that can change based on what you're doing. If you've got a quick question you want to ask, or maybe it's more complex or something, you can kind of select. But something that's fairly unique here is in Gemini, you can click this tools button right next to where we would normally upload files and those types of things. Well, one thing we can do is click Tools, and they have deep research. This is kind of like in some other tools where you would put it into like a more a research mode or something like that. This is like having a research assistant, and like with ChatGPT, what do they call that? I think they call it maybe thinking or deep think or deep thinking or something like that. They're all kind of similar, but this is kind of your research assistant. Use cases for this might be, I want like a full report kind of thing. I want you to go, what is the current state of whatever, K through 12 AI education in the southeast regions of these countries or something like that. I need a, APA styled report, like very specifics or something like that. Deep research, go and go make your lunch kind of thing. Come back a couple of, it will still only take a couple of minutes. But that's pretty impressive that, you could put something into deep research and it would take minutes to render. Whereas, like when we did that last demo, I asked it a question and it returns in what, 2 or 3 seconds. Like it's exponentially more so taking its time. Actually, let me do something like that. Let me put it in deep research mode here and ask it something like that. Put this in here, and maybe we'll have this running while we're thinking or while we're talking. I'll go thinking and deep research. And I can make some. I don't really want it to. I'll let it search the internet for this. I don't want it looking at my Gmail, my Drive, and my chat. Notice that it gives me the options. That's pretty cool. I don't have any files specifically I want it to look at, so I'll go ahead and click submit. So I'll get that one going there too. While that's thinking, notice it's got that, I haven't done it yet, so it's working on that guy. Um, while that's working, I'll open up a new one here, a new chat, and I'll also point out that I could attach, if I had a Notebook LM. I don't know if anybody is a user of Notebook LM, but you can attach it to a notebook if you have one. So I have, for some other courses and things, created some demo ones. But Notebook LM is another Google product that you can kind of think of it like your own separate brain. Oh yeah, some people in chat saying they have it and love it. Yeah, it's great. Like you could upload like I've done here. Like I gave it in this specific example, I guess earlier, about a month ago. I gave it just the course syllabus to I'll click it and say add. I gave it the syllabus to of the prompt engineering course. and said, looking at this and only this, you can do a bunch with it. I could add one file, I could add many files, a whole bunch of links and things, and that becomes kind of the knowledge base. And it's a great separate tool that I think is worth your time in exploring if you're at all like me. And well, even if you're not like me and do have a good memory, it can be really nice. You can make different notebooks for, just kind of keep all my notes about this. And, anytime I have a file related to a particular topic, you could put it in that notebook. And what's particularly cool about its integration now with Gemini is I could say, if this is a notebook where I had been putting in all of my prompts, everything about AI prompting that I was learning, I was putting in here. I could now go into Gemini and say, all right, look at that notebook because it's the compendium of my knowledge about everything I've ever written down or asked it to remember or asked it to log about AI prompting. And I'm now going to ask Gemini about it, right? So pretty cool, right? We could really stuff a lot of things in there, and now we can ask Gemini to answer questions about it. And it also has really neat features. Amanda and I were playing with this last month. You can say, based on all the information that's in there, make a podcast out of this, or make a short video or a slide presentation. And it's a really cool little feature. And it's awesome now that Gemini can connect to it. So a real neat to see there the integration of those two tools. Let's check in back over here. Ah, cool. Look, and all that time I was talking, it started to uh, it made a plan here for our AI policy in K through 12 education. So I can review that policy here. And maybe while we're talking, I'll let this run. Here's a plan I've put together. Let me know if you need any changes before I start. So it says it's going to research these websites, local Virginia districts and things. Sure, sure, sure. I'm not going to take a ton of time with this. It says it'll take a few minutes. So I'll say go ahead and start research. And while that's thinking too, I did also want to highlight, let me open up a new chat, that like many other of the most popular models out there, it also can be multimodal. And that's also really awesome. And but Gemini, I want to highlight that specifically because again, it's a place where uh, this as an AI tool particularly shines. You could put in here, create me an image of whatever, or write a song about something, or help me create a game that will whatever, right? And you could put that in plain language here in a prompt, and it knows what to do. But like some other tools, Gemini makes it really nice because you can also click one of these buttons. And when I do, like, let's say we wanted to create an image for our slide presentation here, it just moves this down and gives me some templates to pick from. So again, I don't have to, like, if I was back in that other interface and I asked it to create an image, it would still create an image for me. But maybe this just kind of clicking that button changes the UI, and maybe that gives me an idea. Like, I was just going to ask it to make me, four doors. But looking at it this way, like, oh, maybe I want steampunk four doors or something like that, or mythic fighter. I don't know or cyborg four doors or something like that. So changes the interface a little bit and might give you some other ideas or some templates to start from. So that's kind of nice. I wanted to point that out. Okay, so I'm going to turn transcription back off. So you would choose Gemini again when you're working somewhere where it's going to be native. You're in Google Docs already, let's say, or Sheets or Slides or Gmail. Um, if you're doing a task that involves images or video or particularly long PDFs, you might turn to Gemini to help you with those things. Uh, doing research on a lot of different websites. That could be a really handy use case for using Gemini. I'll show that sidebar here in just a moment. Um, um, and I wanted to call this out too. Like the free tier for Gemini is genuinely useful. I was chatting with, was it before this webinar or was it in a class end of last week? I guess it doesn't particularly matter. Oh, it was with a coworker this morning. That's what it was. That, with some of the other free tiers of other tools, it's nice if you just have a couple of prompts to ask, but you're quickly limited by the amount of files you can upload or questions you can ask and things. But if you have like say your personal Gmail, that's a free account. The free tier of Google's Gemini is genuinely useful, right? It can live in perpetuity in the sidebar of your Chrome, and it's not going to limit you on prompts and questions and things. So that is, I think, really really nice. Here, let me get out to a demo environment again here and show you that sidebar because I think there's a question in our Q&A about that too. So actually, let me go to just uh, one of these websites here. And so I have this pre-installed where I had now actually this is in Chrome natively. I don't this is one I didn't have to do any extra work on, but I'm out here in my a web page. I could go anywhere I wanted, CNN, graduateschool.edu, something like that. And I can click Ask Gemini and notice what happens. It opens up a little sidebar here, and I can ask it whatever I want. Summarize this page in 3 bullets. Okay, it's got 4 subscription tiers. There's advanced AI capabilities, and it integrates into the ecosystem. Awesome, right? So you can imagine, I'm obviously intentionally doing a very, very short demo here, but how this could be a real game changer, for research and things. And somebody brought up the question here in Q&A about, verification and things, which we'll touch on a little bit. Gets touched on big time in the courses, of course. But this being an introduction, we're just talking about. But anyway, that's the sidebar here, right? And I happen to be on a Google page right now, but that lives everywhere, right? I'll go to graduate school here, and it resets. And what is important about this company? Don't embarrass me, Gemini. Defining key priorities. But point is, it can, run on any course. Extensive history and reach, specialized federal focus, national accreditation, comprehensive curriculum, over 400 courses. Are you looking for something specific? I can help you search, right? So really, really cool. Right in here, I didn't have to, somebody asked a question about this earlier. I don't have to go in here and do a bunch of copying and pasting. I don't have to like put the link in here or something. So really, really handy, right in the flow of work, you might argue. Pardon me. So I did want to talk a little bit too about prompting. Again, if you are joining us fairly regularly for these webinars, I had a more in-depth presentation about prompting last week. So you may want to check out the recording of that, where it talked about some frameworks and different things. But to just summarize some of the key points of that a little bit, whether you're using Gemini or any tool, the more you garbage in, garbage out, right? Particularly applies here to AI. A thin prompt, I like the way that I put it here. A thin prompt is going to get you a thin answer. Something that's really structured and well thought out is going to get you a much usable first draft, and it's okay to go 2 or 3 rounds with your prompt. That's not a failure if, your initial output isn't perfect. But if you can get it in 2 or 3 tries, isn't that a heck of a lot better, than 30, right? And sometimes just straight up don't have a clear concept of where you need to end up. Like I was using it using AI this weekend to create a video game with my kids, and we didn't know what we wanted. So it started super vague, and we just kind of vibe coded our way into creating a game that now is pretty awesome, I think. So like it doesn't have to be perfect, right situation for your right tool for the right job kind of thing. Um, but yeah, what I talk about in that webinar from last week and what I'm about to share here applies to all AI tools, not necessarily specific to Gemini, but Gemini is particularly good about this. So certainly, garbage in, garbage out prompt wise, and that's true for every tool. Like, you may have noticed already, in your own AI prompting experience that being really vague, like, help me with a project update. Like, it's going to give you something. It will answer you and very quickly and very confidently and maybe very incorrect, and very wrongly, perhaps, right? You could be uber vague, like, write a project update for me, and it'll just give you a template, right? You didn't specify the project, you didn't specify the length, or you gave it basically nothing, right? And you could again just edit forever, right? Or you could tell a lot more about your project and these types of things, and right, I don't have to explain, I'm sure, take exponentially less time to get to something that's much more useful for you. Um, so again, more on prompting and prompt frameworks and good prompting practices in that other webinar, and there's a recording up of that. But what I wanted to talk about here, that where Gemini is quite nice, but again, most of them, all of them can do this, is something called the "You Ask Me" technique, and this is where you kind of flip the script, as it so to say, where you ask Gemini to interview you. And I'll do this in a demo environment here in a moment, but say, I'm trying to do something and, here's a little bit of information I think you need, or maybe you don't know anything, like was my experience this weekend, with the kids when we were, making something. We know we want to do this kind of thing, but we haven't really thought about it much. Help me brainstorm. So, ask me questions that you have, because again, like I say in class and things, like where you aren't specific, AI is just going to make it up. So one way to crack that is to be uber specific and give it no way to make anything up, right? Or very few ways to make anything up. Another way to attack that problem is to ask it to, wherever you don't know, I don't want you to make things up. Instead, ask me a question. And so in this instance, it will surface questions that it has, right? I was gonna, come to think of it, you didn't tell me how you wanted this formatted. So do you want it one, two, three, four, or five, for example? And This is really useful, right? Because sometimes, and maybe it'll do it, AI is different every time you interact with it. So we'll see how it behaves here in a moment. But it may surface something that you wouldn't even have thought of. And I guess I couldn't have asked for a better example actually than what we did this weekend, because who knows? We had literally had nothing in mind. And we're like, what are your best ideas given that we want to, vaguely do this? And it brought up stuff none of us had thought of yet, right? It became much more of a conversation with the AI and a creative process with the AI, than something definitive. So, for example, let me go back here to Gemini. I'm in a new chat here. Let me upload a file here. Let me go to my Gemini folder. Here's Gemini. I've got some fake facilities data and a prompt that I typed, so you don't have to watch me misspell every third word, as I often do. And I'll keep it in thinking here. And while it's thinking, I said, you're a facilities analyst. Given the data set of this facility, of the facility ages and the footage and the history that's in this file, recommend three buildings to prioritize for renovation for our next budget cycle. Explain your reasoning in plain language. It cuts it off here a little bit. Yeah, expand it. There we go. And I want a ranked list with each paragraph. But ask me questions you have that will help you produce the best answer possible. And that's the operative bit here, right? Maybe I didn't even have this great of a prompt before. I just said, here's the data. Ask me questions about this data. Because I'm gonna, I want to analyze this data and I want to make sure we both understand it. So I could have just said, ask me questions that you have. And let's see if it even did it this time. It says, as a facilities analyst, I've evaluated the portfolio based on these metrics. Think of this one, and this one. So it gave me an initial assessment, which was nice to see. Actually, I like that it did that. But I do have some So at first blush, I'd say this camp, this retreat, and this other camp. But do you have a total budget cap? Because that's not noted, right? Great question. Because if I did, it's going to give me a different answer. Strategic usage, are any of these slated for change in use? Hey, great question, right? That's some context that if I provided, diametrically different answer provide, probably. Urgency, are there any known safety citation, right? Great questions, actually. And actually, so I really like that it did this. Sometimes I've seen it where it will ask questions first, which is also useful. before it will show any sort of answer. But this is actually kind of nice too, that it gave me, at first blush, it looks like these, um, but I do have some questions. I could answer these questions and get a completely different list. This is obviously a made up scenario, but I think for learning purposes, this is actually even more powerful to see because we can, well, my answer is these three things, but because I don't know this other information, that this is how wrong it could have been, right? I could have said, great, okay, I asked the AI, and we're going to do Silver Lake, Riverbend, and Sunshine Meadow, right? And I would have maybe made a really bad decision, but without this information, right, it would have made a much more informed and better choice. Just quick, going to check on this. Just going back to our deep research. Okay, cool. I don't know when this finished. 39. Oh, about 10 minutes ago, actually. So it didn't take a whole lot of time to do. That's fantastic. So it's opened a little canvas here for me so I could share and export this, by the way, which is really cool. Export it to docs, copy content. And this will even let me create a web page from this, an infographic, quiz, flashcards. I could make an audio overview, right? This is what I was talking about. It really shines with kind of this multimodal creative kind of stuff. Gemini is particularly good at it, but it's done some deep research, and all of this is going to need some verification. Is this really what this executive order says, and so on? Again, we talk about this a lot more in classes and things, but this is pretty comprehensive. I'm still scrolling. Learn more. Oh, good. It cited its sources. I was going to mention. I wish it cited sources, but it did. It just kind of threw these down here. So this is going to take some research to see if how full of it this is or isn't. And here, oh, good. They've got a little uh, um, appendix down here or sources cited. That's wonderful. So it gave me this full report, right? So danger, by the way, too. If you have anybody in your house writing reports, know that the tech like this is out here, right? Or any employees out there writing courses or reports for you. They may be using something like this. Um, so yeah, really, really powerful stuff out here. While I'm still in a demo environment, I see we are got a little less than 10 minutes left. I want to show you some other really cool features because I've shown you around the place and shown you some of the neat features like deep research and things. There are some other great things. Just want to kind of plant some seeds with you to know that what's possible here. Um, they have these things. I don't love the name, name shade notwithstanding. They have these features here in Gemini called gems, which is a little on the nose for me. But basically, what they are is like if you've experienced in other tools, you can create these agents. So gems are to Gemini what agents are to other tools. And I've created some little demo ones here. For example, here's one that I created that runs at a scheduled time, and it searches certain websites that I've given it access to or told it to check out every day at a set time. It will do a search of the websites I told it to look for and give me a report of federal HR news. So that's a little gem that I created using Gemini. I also have a little email summarizer gem. I've given this gem access to my email and my calendar and a few things in my Google Workspace. And this gem, I don't recall. I don't believe this one runs on a set time. I don't think I turned that on, but you can play with it and edit it later and at certain times. But that goes and looks at my email and compares it with my calendar, whatever, and makes a little summary for me of, here's what you need to know, here's what you didn't respond to today, so this is going to be your priority for the next day, that kind of thing. So again, we go into a ton more depth on these gems in the class, but these gems are out there, and then you can create them. That can be really transformative. Again, based on how much information you've given Gemini access to will limit kind of the power of these gems. But the bigger their scope, the bigger their potential access to be transformative and answer questions for you. Another really awesome thing to show you too is these scheduled actions. Pardon me, which if it's your first time in Gemini and you haven't set up any of these scheduled actions, this may not appear for you yet here in settings. I have a couple of scheduled actions, so it is an option for me. Like I mentioned, that daily federal HR news scan, which again, I could come back in here and edit if I wanted it to happen at a different time of day or something like that. But to get those going for the first time, you could start a new chat with Gemini and say in plain language. It's so easy to use, which is what I love. One of the many things I love about Gemini. You can just say, "Hey, could you make a like every day at 7, for example? Could you do a scan of these different websites and whatever, and start having a conversation with it?" And Gemini is smart enough that it will know if you put that in plain language, it will start a scheduled action for you, or what some other tools call a routine. So that's really neat. And once you have your first one created, then you can go down here in settings and then go back and edit them and delete them and do whatever you want. So a little teaser there. Know, that be aware that they exist, because I think those are some of the coolest features. That its ability to do deep research, like I showed, the Notebook LLM integration, which again, that's another cool tool to go check out, and that may help you a bunch with work or personal stuff. The routines, or sorry, excuse me, the scheduled actions and the gems. And again, especially if you give it access to your whole personal, or as much of your work information as you're able to, again, can be really transformative. Look at this. Like, that's funny. I don't send me healthy dinner recipes every weekend, just automatically. Like, what's in my fridge, right? Like, maybe you're connected to my Google Doc that has my shopping list on it or whatever. Like, scan that shopping list and tell me what I should make for dinner or something. Morning motivation. Go find me a motivational quote or something, right? These are just templates that it's giving me, which I could see more of or fewer of. So really, really cool stuff. Wanted to show you some of what I think are some of the big highlights from Gemini here. So let me get back with our just few minutes left. Let me do a quick scan of the questions to see if there's anything I haven't really gotten to yet. Okay, good. Covered a lot of that. Great, great, great. Awesome. Cool. Okay. Um, all right, so I did want, can't have any AI discussion without talking about this, and I do see some of the questions in chat talk about this a little bit. Again, we have entire courses on this stuff, but this is introduction to, and this is even just a slide on an introduction webinar. So very, very little, but we can't talk AI. I don't want to set you loose on a new platform without talking about at least a little bit of this stuff. Know that Gemini, just like any AI tool, can sound very confident, and still be wrong, right? You have to check everything all the time. Just because, even like we did deep research, right? And it showed sources, check those sources. Take the extra 5 seconds even to control F on that source and see if that statistic is really in there, right? Takes 10 seconds, and you can just check, right? You'll feel so much better about it. Verify everything. Control F is your buddy. Verify those facts, the names, the numbers, the citations. I've seen it do it. It'll say Brian Sims said, and you look, and no, he didn't. He didn't. It's not in there. We're never pasting sensitive data or anything that's classified or pre-decision materials, anything like that, into if you're using, say, your free account of Gemini. It's not, protected by your agency or organization's enterprise plan, right? If you're on an enterprise plan, those are so much more secure because, right, that's been vetted by your IT team. They know what is and isn't happening with the data, right? That's a whole different ballgame than using your personal Gmail account, right? And starting to use Gemini. Like, I've had people in class, even in like HR roles and things like, oh, AI's been really transformative. Turns out they're using their personal accounts, like don't do it, right? Anything that goes into a free public tool is going into a free public tool, right? And AI trains on data, right? So very, very important. Nothing sensitive into there at all, especially if it's free. Always follow your organization's AI policy. Of course, that bullet there supersedes anything that Brian said today. Um, and AI is awesome, transformative. Obviously, I'm passionate about it. But every output is a draft, right? It's not going to be a final answer. It's your assistant. That's why I call them assistants, right? And treat it as such, right? Hey, good job. Thank you for drafting this for me. Now I'm gonna do the real check, right? With your experience in your higher level thinking, right? So we saw a lot. I won't go through all of these. I know we just have about 30 seconds left, but I did want to leave you with a couple of nuggets. Gemini.google.com, get to it if you can today. Look around, try to remind yourself where those features are. At graduateschool.edu/AI. We had some people in chat asking about fundamentals classes and things. You can find those. People were asking questions about agents and things too, I saw. Um, if you want to know more about Gemini, we do have a 2-day class that has a lot of this information and way more. It's we go into depth about gems and notebooks and you're integrating with your workspace. And in the class, we build the whole system for your job, but you don't have to use your job. It could just be around your personal life, those types of things. So you build the whole system over the course of the 2-day class. Really cool. Thank you for seeing the coolest thing I've ever done in PowerPoint at the beginning. I hope you were all able to see that, the little scroll thing. I can retire now, I think. And you can say you were here to see it. So may the fourth be with you, everybody. Enjoy the rest of your day. Thanks for nerding out with me over your lunch hour, and looking forward to seeing you all in the next one. Thanks so much, everybody.